Any inmate can at any time look at their.
I know, I think I sent you something, but I can't
Lawyers
remember.
can see it, and they can have the.
If I didn't, I will.
Every single person in their medical record.
So it doesn't matter.
Right.
It is not always easy to find love at the center. There's not a set of easy instructions, numbered 1 through 7, or perhaps even 8. It is not always easy to find love at the center. Today, in Covenant, we celebrate our living tradition, which invites us to take deep breaths of fresh air into the newness of every day, so our minds, hearts, and spirits will be continually nourished. It is not always easy to find love at the center. So for today, we gather in covenant to celebrate the reality that love is at the core of our beings, and that love will guide us if we open ourselves to the challenges which love requires of us. May we accept this challenge with dignity and grace. At this time, we have an opportunity to light our candles of community. At the back table, you can light a candle for a joy or a concern, or simply to bring more light into our space. Let us stand in body or spirit for our chalice lighting, our spoken affirmation, and the lighting of the peace candle. We light our flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In the search for truth, may we be just. In the search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. Let us join in the spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. We light this peace candle to remind us of all the places in the world where there is no peace. Join me in saying the words on the screen. Lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, our universe. May be seated. Our opening thought comes from Mohandas Gandhi, from the collected works of Mohandas Gandhi. Gandhi writes, "Power is of two kinds. One is obtained by the fear of punishment, and the other by acts of love. Power based on love is 1,000 times more effective and permanent than the one derived from the fear of punishment." Our next reading is from Bell Hooks and her book, All About Love, New Visions. She writes, "There can be no love without justice. Abuse and neglect negate love. Care and affirmation, the opposite of abuse and humiliation, are the foundation of love. It is a testimony to the failure of loving practice that abuse is happening in the first place. Let us join together for our time of meditation. We'll be using the words of Melissa Jeter, changed and held in love. Let us take a moment to center ourselves, sitting comfortably, breathing in and out. In and out. We are grateful to be in the presence of one another. We are grateful for the affirmation that being together in this community brings. Let us have hearts open with humility. Let us find our way mindful that there is an abundance from which we can draw water, the peace of all peace that comes not without struggle or wrestling with the ways of scarcity and individualism in the world. Let us find ways to disrupt injustice. Let us find ways to accept one another while preserving our hearts. Let us go beyond thinking and suspend all judgment. May we be changed and held in love. May we recognize and receive grace, for none of us alone has the answer. So be it. Our next reading comes from Ken Witzma, Pursuing Justice, the Call to Live and Die for Bigger Things. He writes, justice does not have a finish line, and neither does education. We never reach a point where we cannot learn, where ceasing to learn would make us or the world better. It takes perseverance to walk the road of justice, and we cannot know where or when or if it will end for us.
If I can stop my heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain.
Today we're looking at the topic of being loving and just in an unloving and unjust world. It's pretty clear when we look at history, but also when we look at the present, that many societies have fallen into patterns and practices that are not healthy, that are not desirable, that are not good for persons or for the planet. So what I'd like to do today with you is explore what we can be doing. What can we be doing not only at the local community level, but at the state level, national level, global level, to express love, to do justice, and provide support for one another, even in the midst of living in an unjust and often unloving community and society. Even in the darkest of times, and we know that there have been many dark times in human history, but even in the darkest of times, it's important to do all that we can to keep shining the light of love and justice in the world, even if it's just a flicker of light, even if it's just a flame of light, it can still provide comfort. It can still provide hope. It can still provide guidance for a way forward to something better. So even in the darkest of times, it's important to keep shining the light of love and justice in the world. And whatever our orientation to religion might be, that phrase, orientation to religion, is a phrase that I borrow from Eboo Patel, who focuses on how persons of different religious orientations can live and work together and be at peace together within human community. So whatever our orientation to religion might be, it must not be allowed to become a cover or a justification for hate and fear and injustice. Any belief system that requires that we see differences in the sacred worth or the inherent worth of all persons becomes a dangerous source of injustice within the human community. So whatever our orientation to religion might be, may it not become that. May it not become a dangerous source of injustice. Religious communities are, I believe, at their best when they model ways of being a more inclusive human community through love and justice for all. But they are at their worst when they use fear and exclusion of others to gain and expand power to further their own narrow interests, which unfortunately are often narrow ethnocultural interests. Some of the most powerful movements for justice in the history of humanity were led by persons who did not feed what Howard Thurman called the three hounds of hell: fear, deception, and hatred. They did not feed the three hounds of hell, but they forged a path of courage, truth, and love. And I believe that religious communities are at their best when they don't feed those hounds of hell, but forge a path of courage, truth, and love. Sometimes that's difficult to do during difficult times, during times when society is unloving and unjust. As satisfying as it may feel, and I know it may feel very satisfying, to call the purveyors of injustice names that in most cases they most assuredly deserve, that will not be the way to defeating injustice. I'm not going to judge you if you call them names, that's okay. But that's not going to be the way to defeating injustice. That's not going to be enough. We must communicate a compelling vision and plan that moves us all towards a just and beloved community. Getting angry, calling person's names, even if we think they deserve it, that will not get us to a just and beloved community. The most effective way to overcome hate and fear is not through more hate and fear, but rather through love and hope, even when it's difficult to do so. The power of nonviolence and love to bring about significant change, even significant systemic change within human communities, has been underestimated over and over again by those who use violence, force, and fear to maintain their power. It's only the power of love that can truly cultivate a just and sustainable community. We'll never get where we need to be through hate and fear. Think of all those times where the purveyors of injustice, those who use the force of violence, underestimated those who worked for nonviolent change through history. We'll mention some of them here in just a moment. The powerhouse people for good in human history have realized that the only way to overcome the power of hate and fear is through love and courage in pursuit of justice. And we, all of us, are called to have a hope that love and the force of love ultimately has more power in the world than the force of hate, even if it may not always look that way in the short run. And I certainly realize that there are times in the short run, even the mid-run, and sometimes it seems like the long run, that hate and fear and injustice are having their way. But love, force, and the force of nonviolent love has a way of overcoming the forces of hate in the world. Some of the most powerful shapers of human history have used the least amount of violence because they recognize that true power for good comes from the force of love and justice. Gandhi is an example, Dorothy Day, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Thich Nhat Hanh, and Wangari Maathai are all examples of persons that I've spoken with you about in the past who did not have power through brute strength or physical force. In fact, in that list, perhaps the most physically intimidating person was Wangari Maathai, not any of the others, but she did not use brute force or physical strength or physical force to bring about justice. She brought about justice through the force of love. All of those persons and so many more had a power that came from the force of love, a force of justice that changed the world during their lives, and not only during their lives. Unfortunately, all those persons are no longer with us, but the force of love and justice that they expressed during their lives continue to transform the world for good today. And they'll continue to do that into the future, even though they are no longer living. One of the greatest acts of faith, hope, love, and courage is to work for the creation of just and beloved community, even though we ourselves may never get to see it come to full fruition in our lives. It's our way of expressing love for all who are and for all who are yet to come, just as many persons in the past have done that for us. They have lived and loved before us, and much of the good that we experience in the world is because of the work that they did for love and justice during their times. And it's one of the greatest ways that we can love them, the ones who've come before us. One of the greatest ways that we can love them and respect them is to continue their work for love and justice today, because we so greatly benefited from their work for love and justice in ages past. I believe, rightly or wrongly, this is a personal belief of mine, so take it for what it's worth. I believe that every act of love and kindness and justice is ultimately not lost. It's ultimately not lost. That somehow it is saved in the world. I believe that every act of love and kindness and justice will find a way, sometimes small, sometimes large, to make a positive difference in the world, even when it seems that the world is not taking note. I believe that nothing that's loving and justice and just and good is ultimately lost. Every act of love and justice can be a seed for something else to grow and to flourish. But also, every act of love and justice, no matter how small, everything that we do in our own lives with each other, in this community and outside of this community, is good in itself. It is good in itself. It's something to be celebrated. It's something to be cherished in itself. But it also could become a seed for something greater to grow and potentially flourish. So as we look at the world around us, which undoubtedly is one where there is a lot of injustice, a lot of hate, a lot of fear, and a lot of stoking of that fear and hatred for causes that are also unloving and unjust, may we find strength with each other. May we share with each other that love and justice during these extremely troubling times, so that we may together leave a legacy of love, a legacy of justice, rather than a legacy of hate, fear, and injustice. And may we pray and hope that that love and justice may never be lost in this community or in the world, now or in the days to come. At this time, we have an opportunity for giving. You may bring your gifts to the table, or you may also have an opportunity to give online.
make channels for the streams above, where they may wrongly run, and love has overflowed streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we see such channels to provide, the very founts of love for us will soon be parched and dry. For we must share if we would keep this gift all else above. We cease to give, we cease to have, such is the law of love.
Our parting thought comes from a person I went to seminary with at Candler School of Theology, who also happens to be the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr., Bernice King. She writes, "Love is not a weak, spineless emotion. It is a powerful moral force on the side of justice." Let us join in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.